Welcome everyone, participants and attendees to the Hotel Business Hot Topics virtual panel series. I am Sonal Uberoi, the founder of Spa Balance, a boutique consultancy specializing in wellness concepts for luxury hotels. And I'm also the author of The Wellness Asset, How Wellness Can Transform and Future-Proof Your Hotel. Today, along with this fantastic panel of industry experts, we'll be talking about investing in wellness, your brand, your guests, and your bottom line. What are consumers' priorities as they plan the post-pandemic travels? Today, as people are making their travel plans and both business and leisure travel is rebounding, your guests are more than ever considering wellness, including access to fitness activities when booking their stays. And hotels of all types, whether luxury, budget, can offer travelers the wellness experiences they want and seek. And in today's thought leadership session, we'll be talking about assets, amenities, activities, and offerings that are important to our guests. What influences them most when choosing accommodations, and why hoteliers should invest in wellness to drive business and create a healthy bottom line. To introduce the fantastic panel of industry experts, I have Anne Diamond, co-founder and CEO of the Wellness Tourism Association, Kenneth Ryan, VP, Global Wellness, Spa and Fitness Operations, Marriott International, Celine Vadam, founder and CEO of We Think, Ryan Crabb, Senior Director, Commercial Experience, Peloton Commercial, and Sonia Haffey, Principal of V-Star. The session is 1 hour long. We want and encourage an interactive session. So we encourage you to type your questions in the QA session, not in the chat box, and we'll try to get as many as possible. And we will be covering this hot topic session in the November issue of Hotel Business on hotelbusiness.com, as well as various social media channels like LinkedIn and Twitter. And the session is being recorded and will also be soon available on demand online. Also, I'd like to take a moment to thank our partner, Peloton Commercial, for today's panel discussion. And now to start off with our panel discussion, there is no doubt that these last 2 years we've had, our industry has experienced some riveting times. Overnight, our industry was taken to a screeching halt. And then as we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, we're suddenly faced with an energy and supply chain crises. We're faced with shortage of great talent. And in some locations, there is a recession looming, while some hotels are recording top ADR rates. And within this interesting landscape, unprecedented, how are we seeing, what trends are we seeing in the industry, and how is it impacting the hospitality industry in general and all over the globe? And maybe Kenneth, you wanted to start on that.
Sure. Thank you, and welcome to everybody. And I look forward to working with this panel today. I think, the pandemic really taught the world a lesson in the importance of personal well-being and wellness, right? And I think it really allowed us all the opportunity to pause and look at our lives individually. So I think, we saw more people, working out outside, walking, hiking, and the like, and then also putting a focus on, what they're eating and how they're going about that. So that forced slowdown really allowed us to be present and aware of what was going on. And we've heard this lots of times, that wellness is now at the forefront of everybody's mind, and their self-care rituals are really important to everybody, and they're taking that with them when they travel, and they're looking for those ways to keep that healthy lifestyle while they're on the road, right? And this has had a profound shift in what's going on and driving powerful growth. I mean, the growth that we're seeing, as Sonia, you just mentioned just slightly, is that we're seeing high demand in our spas. We're seeing the best revenues in ever, right? Well over 2019, best revenues ever, and really strong rates. So I think that the consumer is arriving on property, and they're looking for things that they can do to keep that healthy lifestyle going. And it's different for every customer. right? Everybody thinks about wellness in a different way. It's not one definition, it's different for each customer. And I think in the hotels, it's important for us to identify, lots of touch points in which they can find that wellness offering on the property.
That is very, very true. And Anne, what are you seeing consumers say in your survey that you've been conducting?
Well, I do have a survey, but I just wanted to respond to what Kenneth has said. He's absolutely right. What we have seen at the Wellness Tourism Association is that the one greatest thing that has come out of the pandemic is people are now realizing how important making their own personal health a priority is. And we have seen, as Kenneth says, more people who have adopted a wellness lifestyle, who want to incorporate those elements of a wellness lifestyle into their travels. So what we see at the WTA is two types of travelers who can fall under the umbrella of being a wellness traveler. Those who already live a wellness lifestyle and want to take that with them on the road, and those who want to use their travel time, their vacation time, their leisure travel time to actually get on a path to wellness. So those are the two major things that we are seeing. With regard to the consumer survey we have, I can certainly go through that later after anybody else wants to jump in here.
I've seen this fantastic question come in through Noah Bloom, saying that I think wellness now goes beyond the gym and spa, very much so. And how do we see wellness throughout and beyond those two physical places in the guest experience? For example, location, time, new opportunities, guest experiences. Fantastic question, Noah.
And but if you want me to jump in on that, with what our consumers ranked extremely important in 2021 survey, we had around 2,500 consumers respond to this in 3 months, April, May, June of 2021. So when you're ready, just let me know and I will tell you what they ranked as extremely important.
Well, I feel like it's everything, right? So wellness it's actionable and it's to meet a goal. And now I think everyone realized, especially through the pandemic, that it's not just going to the gym or potentially a certain weight or a physique or your goal is very broad. It's become very mental. Mental health has been a big deal now. So from head to toe. And through that experience, it's everywhere. It's from the moment that you arrive, how you're greeted. If someone opens your door, if you're at a resort, if they're smiling when they open the door, that immediately releases endorphins in your brain and you start on this wellness journey. You're going into these hotels and now the scent is a big deal, and that scent sparks some kind of emotion or otherwise. Your F&B, what you're touching, your comfort level, because there's been a big increase in fear and anxiety, unfortunately. And so how do you soothe that person throughout the whole process? How easy was your check-in? How many people were there to greet you? Impact wellness as a whole. So I think that was a really great question.
I think also, if I may, that wellness went from like something related to physical appearance. So before, the spa was really like towards aesthetics. The gym was to look good, like eating healthy, or like eating like nutritious, really related food was to be slimmer. Now wellness is really related to health, and how can you improve your overall health with like sleeping well, eating well, moving well, socializing well. And these are really like the four like universal pillars of healthy living. And these are things that you can implement in various touch points throughout the hotel. And that goes from design, operations, materials you're using, like a big proportion of the skin is the bigger absorber, actually, even more than the like what you put inside your body, what you put your skin in contact with is very important too for your health. So there are so many touch points throughout the hotel, throughout as Sonia was saying, throughout every department at every single level. And to go even beyond that, like wellness, the same way as sustainability is taking care of the planet, wellness is taking care of the people. So to some extent, it shouldn't be also like a luxury, because at the moment, wellness is still like, we see like really wellness implemented more at the higher spectrum of hospitality. It should really be about taking about people's health and really having some basic wellness stuff going on like at every single level of the hospitality industry.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm also seeing not only in the luxury landscape, also for budget hotels, or probably more the lifestyle hotels, we are seeing wellness being incorporated throughout the guest journey, pre-arrival to post-departure. And I think, Kenneth, maybe you could also expand on that in, your various brands. And it's not only about the direct revenue generating centers like we would traditionally have the spa. I think hoteliers have now embraced the more intangible aspects that actually enhance the guest experience, the overall guest experience, which ultimately enhances their overall well-being and also the employees' well-being.
Allow me to jump in here for just a moment, because over the years, as wellness travel has evolved, it used to be all about the spa experience and all about luxury. And now it has evolved to be so much more. Luxury and spa can still be part of it, but it's now so much more inclusive. Don't you?
Yeah, I would. I mean, if I could, I would jump in on that on two fronts. I think, in the luxury space, spa and wellness have been synonymous, right? And I've been living in this space for 20 plus years. They've been synonymous. And I think it's the most visible and tangible beacon for wellness when you're on property in a luxury hotel. People think that that's where I'm going to go to get my wellness. Conversely, we've been very successful recently with a launch that we did throughout our Europe, Middle East, and Africa properties, where we partnered in a digital space. And I think you're all very familiar with this, but there's been 70,000 wellness and fitness apps that have launched since the pandemic. And I guarantee every one of you on this call have 2 or 3 on your phone, right? So, I mean, it's just been this boom where we've put wellness in the palm of our hand. But particularly in our regions through EMA, we've just launched a program where we've put on a membership benefit. So we've got the Marriott Bonvoy program, and we put on a program that says, stay with us and go, where you have the ability to have access. So it's stay fit on the go with Marriott Bonvoy, but we're giving everybody access to a digital app with fitness on demand, and it's a curated experience for people staying in a hotel. So think about exercises that you can do in the room. So bodyweight exercises. Think about meditation, think about yoga, think about visualization and sort of thing. So this, to Anne's point, we're putting wellness in the palm of everybody's hand that's staying in one of our hotels. Could be just launched, but we got about 400 hotels right now. But it's really a great way, because the other thing I'll say, final point, is that when people are traveling, they're outside of their normal routine that they have at home, and they're more open to experience new things. So when you can provide that, it says, hey, to the customer, I'm thinking of your wellness, and here's an option to try something that maybe you haven't before. And then maybe they take up meditation in their life, or they take up yoga in their life, or they take up some form of movement in their life.
Yeah, I saw a recent stay. There was it gave you a path that you could walk, and it gave you the mileage, and it was to get out, to see something new, experience something new, Kenneth. So I'd completely agree with you on that.
Yeah, I love the idea of apps on phones. We certainly find the Peloton app traveling with our members and even non-members a lot more. But one of the neat things about working at Peloton is our access to just absolutely unparalleled consumer insights. Our responsibility is to really keep the pulse on the fitness space, understand how people are liking to work out, how that has shifted. And I think for me, one of the biggest shifts, right, pre versus post pandemic, is this idea that connected fitness, or the apps that Kenneth is talking about, Peloton and others, can deliver motivational and effective training and fitness outcomes. And I don't think that was the consensus before, but I think as people were forced to reevaluate the space and reevaluate the time and when they consume fitness. I think a lot of people learned during the pandemic that that you could have just as motivating and just as an effective workout through connected fitness and digital apps. We've seen that really, kind of catalyze a shift in how people want to book travel. Beyond having really great consumer insights, one of the things that we launched a few years ago was Peloton Hotel Finder. We're not in the travel business, but we have a ton of travel insights. And, during COVID, we were able to look at Hotel Finder and see some of these macro trends of people being interested in local and regional travel and people getting outdoors more, Celine, which I think you mentioned. And we also saw kind of this rise of this omni fitness,
yes,
fitness seeker, right? Like they're not satisfied with leaving behind some of these habits and experiences that were so memorable and impactful during COVID. They want to take that with them. And so, one of the things that we did, because we saw this happening during COVID, was, a simple ad. We added a brand filter to Hotel Finder. So it's a non-negotiable, having fitness and connected fitness in hotels. So many of our members and even non-members, a lot of people don't even know that, you don't have to be a Peloton member to use Peloton on the road, but they are choosing brands and, selecting hotels to stay with where they still have access to what has become a very, very personal asset to them, which is the habits and the behaviors that they picked up during COVID.
And I think to jump onto your point, like the access to all these apps also allow to target a different segment of wellness, because before it was really more on the leisure side. But now, like business travelers, especially when you travel heavily for business, that's where you need even more like to take care of yourself, to still be productive on the road and still be able to maintain your routine. Because when you're on the leisure, that's where you're happy to experience different things and to like shake up a bit your routine. But when you're traveling for business, you really want to stick to the habits that makes you, like going to the gym in the morning. For me, it's my booster. If I don't have that, I don't, I'm missing something. So like being able to maintain your healthy habits while traveling for business traveler is a big thing, and there's such a untapped market for like business travelers wellness, and especially now that companies are realizing that it's good for, like, what is good for the travelers is also good for the company, because it makes them more productive, better able to work during meetings. And we see like programs now, like wellness programs for meetings, where you have a little pause with meditation or with a bit of movement. And like some companies now are happy to pay a little bit more to have a better room, or like some wellness experience for their business traveler, because they know they're gonna be like more productive.
Yeah, just to add to that real quickly, we do see, many of our hotels, we hold large conventions and a whole big group events, and we're seeing a more and more demand ask from the meeting planners. Can you do a wellness zone? Can you do a Zen Den? These type of areas where during the event that people can go and get their wellness and really recharge and disconnect and tune out. So that's been sort of a big trend post the pandemic as well within our meeting spaces. We're often asked how we can bring that element back into their event. In addition to obviously the healthy food choice options and all that sort of stuff, everything is being looked at through that lens now. And we talk about it being, on everybody's conscious mind of what wellness is. It's really a filter now that almost everything is being put through.
We have a fantastic question from the audience asking, do we see trends in consumers preferring to detox from digital, or are they more and more utilizing apps to assist with their wellness? And should hotels take more advantage of apps and digital experiences?
I think it probably is the individual, right? Kenneth?
I would say it's both. It's yes and. It's right. So it's there is that digital detox where, we're in front of screens and we're all that sort of stuff. But when you can put wellness in the palm of your hand, I'll give you an example. I often meditate with my phone. I love to be guided through my meditation. And so that's like my eyes are closed, but it's guiding me and aiding me. So I think there's lots of ways to do that. The one thing that I really love about the app is that it's something that's cost effective that you can give to everybody. Not everybody can build a big spa, and everybody can build big thermal areas or have treatments and so forth like that. But it's a real tangible and beneficial application that you can provide to your guests. So I think there's some really interesting things there. And I'll just piggyback on what Ryan said. Peloton, and I could have this wrong, but my experience with Peloton, they were all about the bike, and they moved to an app. And in that app, they have great classes. I mean, their meditation and their yoga and stuff like that are phenomenal tools as well. So I think that digital, yes, there is a digital detox that is needed, and sort of a yes and question. The answer is that when you have the right wellness access on your phone and stuff like that, it can really aid in your overall well-being if you choose in that way.
One of the things I love hearing you say about that, Kenneth, is that through digital, I think the consumer, our hotel guests, they're far more open to experimenting with other modalities, right? I think pre-COVID, before this acceleration, this accelerating digital trend, right? I think people could really kind of box in their routines as we have enhanced our content and moved into different modalities. We can see that people start as an avid fan and follower of indoor cycling, right? But as we added modalities, we start to see a lot more experimentation. And because of that, you start to see patterns shift. Perfect example. A lot of people know probably the name Cody Rigsby. One of our instructors, appeared on Dancing with the Stars, well loved, right, across the community. For the longest time, he was just doing indoor cycling classes. But I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I needed to do meditation, and Cody's got a couple meditation classes. And this just kind of speaks to the power of kind of varied interest that you get once you give somebody an app. You throw the world's most amazing music on it. You give people the choices about duration. Do I want a 5-minute class, a 20-minute class? And what you ultimately getting is you end up getting a more well-rounded fitness consumer, not somebody who's just kind of tunnel focused on the modality that initially speaks to them, but modalities that can benefit their practices they hadn't even considered, which is kind of a part of digital.
Sorry. On the topic of digital, though, there's also those travelers who want to do a digital detox, and there are retreats out there that are specifically themed, like a multi-day retreat led by a meditation specialist, and they can book these type of retreats. So they're out there just in case anybody.
I think sorry.
Go ahead.
No, that wellness is also going more towards medical and data. So the digital is not only used to take classes or meditation, it's also used to track data. And there are more brands that associate with clinics or with medical practitioners, or to do diagnostics when you go on holiday and you have your some tests, or to track your workout, track your sleep, track whatever. There are so many things you can track now. And this is also part of the wellness experience. And there are brands where when you are at the hotel, they track your sleep and give you tips on how to improve your sleep as well. So technology is also used to help customers with to improve their health. Not only to do classes, but really also to that purpose.
Yeah, but I feel like out of all of it, you have a lot of this digital, and it's really increased in people that want to do a digital detox. I feel like another thing that came out of all of this is flexibility. So I should have, and no matter where I stay, and that what my ADR is, I should be able to have the ability to digital detox as well without going to a retreat. So is there a pathway that you could mark for me to go on a walk? Is there something that isn't digital that you can offer your guests so that they have the option to do that? You know, there's a quiet space, something that maybe isn't as expensive, or hey, call us and we'll wipe down a yoga mat and bring it to your room and you can have your piece there. Things that are, you know, just the option and the flexibility to do that are also what I've been seeing in a lot of hotels. I've been traveling a lot lately, are the earplugs and the eye masks, because while your neighbor may be there for a bachelor party, you might be there on business or to find your sleep, like Celine was saying. And how do you balance with the flexibility of all these different people and being able to get your sleep and your rest and your wellness drink if you want a healthy food option or otherwise? And I think they're all missing that snack bar component. They're all unhealthy. How can we make those?
Yeah, no, we have some great questions from the audiences, from Sean Faulkson and Jill Rigsby about, you know, the F&B element. Yes, we have developed all our wellness related experiences, all the digital experiences, but then our raw elements, for example, food and beverage options in our lobby, for example, or in our snacks or meetings, you know, they're all, you know, full of sugar. I mean, where does wellness fit in there? I mean, are we being coherent when we're offering our guests?
Having worked with a lot of chefs on that topic, an issue with that is training. You know, like you wouldn't expect a trained Japanese chef to be able to cook Italian cooking like that. Like you would need a bit of training to know how to use the ingredients, etc. It's the same with healthy food. We would assume that chefs would know, but a lot of chefs are trained through the French cuisine school. So a lot of butter, a lot of meat, a lot of dairy. And it's not that they don't want to do healthier meal, it's just they don't really know how to do, they don't know how to put together a balanced plate, you know, like a vegetarian meal is not only like taking out the meat and throwing some tofu in there, or just having vegetables. You really need to like know how to compose with the different nutrients to have something balanced for your guests. So I think a lot of it comes through training and like giving the toolbox to chefs to be able to implement and like be creative as well with and comfortable creating healthy dishes.
That's so true, right? When you ordered the vegan platter before it, you just got a salad.
That's right. But the important thing now is that more and more people have a different food preference, be it vegetarian, vegan, they don't eat red meat, whatever. So restaurants at properties need to be able to serve these clients, these guests, with a variety of food preferences. And people want farm to table as well. So it's hard being a chef these days.
And, you know, we're talking about training, Celine, and it's about the people. And yes, it is our guests' well-being that is incredibly important, but employee well-being has become incredibly important. And we're living very unique times where in our workforce, we have 5 decades of staff from the early 20s going to the late 60s in some countries in Europe. So it's, how do we manage their well-being expectations? I mean, hospitality is notorious for long hours, very antisocial hours, grueling shifts. And I'm wondering, how is employee well-being incorporated into all of this? And can we measure the return on investment on that? All those initiatives towards employee well-being.
Well, I'm not a hotelier by any means, but I know that you know, there's been a lot of research recently where you can think of it just logically. If you're treating your employees a certain way and they're happy and they're healthy, then that reflects your brand. And then when you're going back and they're your front facing, if you're looking at them, they're going to be based off of probably one of your employees. So if you're treating them a certain way, then they're going to treat your guests a certain way, and then you're going to get a return on the investment that you just put into that employee.
Yeah, that's actually Mr. Marriott's philosophy on the entire company that he's built. If you take care of the associates will take care of the guests, and the guests will return. Our entire company, the 8,000 plus hotels we have around the world, are all born on that statement. So that's proof in the pudding right there. You're looking for the biggest metric. Well, it's served that company, my company, really well to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I would just say, we've got at Peloton, we've got a separate division that's dedicated now to corporate wellness. We've got tons of research, right, that just shows what you guys are all mentioning, which is just the increased, positivity, the increased productivity, feelings of wellness that transcend what's happening at work, but also make it at home. And this is just a fun space to watch at Peloton. We obviously have corporate wellness partners. We partnered with some big insurance companies. Just a couple of weeks ago, we launched a partnership with Hilton. And one of the really neat things that we were excited to do there was to start to make connected fitness and the app accessible to more than just guests, right? This is really our first foray into seeing how offering a 90-day free trial to that team impacts them at the individual level, at the team level, property level. Huge opportunity for obviously not just Peloton, but for a lot others. And where does that happen? Like, what arenas does it happen in? Of course, like, it can happen digitally. There's efficiency there, right? But there's all sorts of on the ground, on site, programs and offers that can really light up that team. And we're excited to figure out, if there might be some additional application to the hospitality industry, since we're talking about hotels so much today. After looking
and
at
at the end, at the end, the employees have the same needs as guests, right? We are as human as the guests, so they also like having access to the meditation app, or like having good food at the canteen, or so like, and also like as guests are much more educated about wellness, it's also important that employees are more educated about wellness and what they can do for themselves, because that's gonna go through to the guests, as to Sonia and Kenneth's point, it will represent your brand, like having healthy and happy employees, but they can also answer better guests answers. Like we were talking about F&B, when you go to a restaurant and the waiter has to go like 5 times to ask the kitchen like if a meal is vegan or gluten-free or this or that. It's good to, again, back to training, to give them also the understanding of how to take care of themselves, because that's going to go through to the guest and the service and the quality of their work as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I do want to, sorry, Ryan, do you have any data on how many people took part in that?
We're doing a 30-day look back next week. So, we would have kind of incomplete data at this point. I haven't seen it yet, but we're certainly watching it really closely, no doubt.
And sticking, coming back to the employee well-being, there are studies that have been done in Europe considering a 4-day work week for employees. Mm-hmm. Do we think we should be considering that for our employees? I know there are obviously locations and there are locations. And is it realistic?
So any of the research that I've read about, it showed that there was an increase in productivity. There was an increase in employee happiness. I know it might not be feasible, but I know with, again, back to the flexibility, I feel like a lot of the employees, if they had the option and they wanted a second job, because obviously inflation, you can't just keep one job anymore. So if you had a 4-day and you could do this, and then I could, Uber on the side and have 3 days to do this, I feel like it would be smart. We haven't done it yet, but
Yeah, I would add to that, the pandemic has taught us all to be more flexible. And I would say that's shown up in our spa world in a big way. So I have 550 spas under management at Marriott worldwide. And one of our biggest challenges is always having great quality therapists to be able to perform the treatments and so forth. And the flexibility that we've employed, I would say more so post-pandemic than ever, is really working with people and working on their terms. What schedule works best for you that can fit into our operation. And, it sometimes requires you to have a few more people on staff, but they're happier, right? Because they're working when they want to be there. And who doesn't want a therapist that wants to be there, right? Like that treatment just screams to me is going to be a much more enjoyable treatment than somebody who has to be there because they're fitting into a certain mold. So I think that's been a huge change of a trend in the pandemic, is the flexibility of work and life balance arrangements and so forth. And I would say at the corporate office, Marriott International has also adapted to a hybrid mode where they have only so many days that you're required to be in the office. I think what the pandemic has taught us, that we can work from anywhere and be very successful, and actually in most cases even more productive. What they're saying is that having that flexibility has really been an opportunity for us to hire the top talent throughout the organization, because people are living in different places, and maybe not everybody wants to live where your headquarters is, but they have a lot of value they can add to your organization. So I think there's been some really great learnings in that space.
One thing too with that is that like a hotel, depending on the size of the hotels, you have to deal with a lot of employees, a lot of different schedules, a lot of different departments, it's not like when you have one company where everybody is kind of doing the same job, or like you have two shifts. It's quite easy to manage. Hotels are really, it's like a mini town that you have to manage. So you have to work with all the schedules of everybody. Plus the margins on certain departments can be tight. So it's like a very, like when you look at the hotel P&L, it's very heavy on employees. And in certain destinations where you have like high labor costs, the margin is very thin in terms of like how many more employees can you get per guest. Like if you look at Asia, for example, the number of employees per hotel rooms in hotels is higher than in Europe, or like in like European cities. In resort destination is even worse, because you have some destinations, resort destinations in the US are more year-round, but resort destinations in Europe are very seasonal. So when you go to like European ski destinations or like beach destination, it's like in 4 months you're doing your revenues and your profits for the year. So staff, they are working like 6 or 7 days, like 6 days a week, and for 4 months. And then they're on holidays for like the rest of the year, or like they take a few months off and then they do the winter season in one place and the summer in one place. So depending on the destination, the intensity of the work and these 4 days a week work is might not be realistic to like put in place. And also like you I think Kenneth or Sonia mentioned staff training, and that's also the issue. But having like staff that work in their terms and better reduce the turnover, and then you can have you don't have to like train more like employees because everybody's leaving. So there are benefits, of course, for like having like the hospitality industry is not flexible, and especially for employment. And for women employment also, it's not really flexible. Like you can't really, if you have like there's the working hours, but there's also so many other elements where hotels can make the life of the employees easier, like kids facilities, or like arrangement to like, so it's easier to pick up your kids after school, or like yeah, like a, I don't know, like dry cleaning, so you don't have to spend time doing laundry, or little things like that that improve the overall employees experience when they're at home. So when they're in the office, they can work, and when they're at home, that's where they have their buffer and they can really concentrate and getting some rest.
Yes,
So
and I
it's
think
also like
another-
over creative ideas to think about
and
that, because the working hours won't work at every property.
And I think it's flexibility, the reality. I think people who work in seasonal locations and destinations are happy to pull the hours in because then they want their months free. And I think we need to adapt our operations according to the life realities of different kinds of people and, different lifestyles, different age groups, different realities. And I think the pandemic has brought that level of flexibility that as hoteliers we're exploring. And obviously it does take a while to roll out in different destinations, but we are seeing, as you said, these creative ideas. And now you touch on a very interesting point about return on investment. Wellness has always been the big player of the hospitality industry. I remember when I was starting, spas represent that, the traditional way of looking at it, the 1 to 3% of total hotel revenue. How can we measure wellness success today, the tangible and intangible aspects? And how can we use it to measure our triple bottom line?
And first of all, I think the calculation for wellness revenue is wrong, because all the spa is carrying out all the cost of running the gym, running the swimming pool, the sauna, all the spa facilities, and this is all given access to guests for free as part of the room rate, and room revenues go to the room departments. The spa doesn't charge back like a daily fee to like the room departments for the usage of the spa facilities from the guests. So there's already like a discrepancy between the reality of like potential revenues from the spa and who is using the spa, because at the end, the only revenues from the spa come from the treatment or the membership. So it's not accounted for like all these free day use of the spa facility. So if already like you can have like more clarity on that, that should pump up a little bit the spa revenues and give a little a more transparent idea of what spa revenues actually are.
And I mean, if we look beyond spa, we look at wellness, the whole overall hotel P&L, the whole asset ecosystem. How can we measure the triple bottom line, the value of wellness to the hotel's overall profit loss? Do you think guests are willing to pay a higher rate in order to have an integrated wellness experience?
Well, I think that depends on the guest, right? So if it's a guest of a family and they're going to Disney, they're not going to even be at the location, really. They're going to be at parks, so they're not going to be willing to do that. If it's, we talked about earlier, the business traveler, and how the business traveler, I think it was Celine that said they're willing to pay a little bit more to go somewhere that has the wellness aspect, then yes, I think, it's bigger, right? So your triple bottom line, I think all of your consumers across the board are more educated. They've had a lot of time to do a lot of research. They're holding companies accountable for their environmental impacts, for their management of people, for how they're paying. They're not just looking at what do you have to offer me, they're affecting the entire triple bottom line, right? So if anyone that's watching doesn't know what it is, it's not just your profits, but it's also your people and the environment, right? The planet. So how you're affecting all of those things are really impacting how the consumer is making decisions now. And if they read that your company, no matter how wonderful it is, if your company isn't doing things a certain way that they disagree with, they're not going to go there. So I don't know how to measure that. through surveys maybe, Anne might have some more information or data, but I know that it's definitely in the foreground of people's minds. What are you doing? Do you recycle? Are you conscious of the environment? Do you have the option that I can hang up my towel and you're not going to clean my room every day? How are you treating your people? How are they treating me? They're looking at that.
Absolutely. Let me just say, it's not always all about the bottom line. If people go away and they say they had a great experience, I mean, that's value too, because they will tell other people, which will bring more people, or they will come back. So the whole wellness thing doesn't just have to be about the bottom line. It's also, as I said before, not all about the spa experience. And if there are hoteliers on the call who want to get in to the space, but don't have a spa and don't have the money to build one, there are ways to do that as well. Nature, activities out in nature, exceedingly important. Consumers are telling us. And you just mentioned too about sustainability. Extremely important, falls under the umbrella of wellness, giving back to the local community. All these things are becoming increasingly important to the traveler as the future unfolds.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Before joining Peloton, I worked in hospitality, and this was one of the questions that always dogged a lot of conversation. What's the ROI of spa? What's the ROI of fitness? And obviously, it's a bit ambiguous. We're talking about it here. It's not all tangible. For me, ROI is really about, what's the return on your reputation? What's going to make you attractive for today's wellness customers? What's your return on social? How much does what you offer, feel so good that it inspires people to share? And that's not an easy pivot, I think, for the industry to make and for operators and brands to make. But that feels kind of like the right spaces where I think we can broaden the conversation as wellness industry experts and really, drive the value of wellness in the past, but obviously wellness as it's changed as a result of the pandemic.
I do think that there's a couple different metrics out there that are a different way of looking at it. One that we track quite heavily is guest voice. So we survey our guests that stay at our hotels, and our guests tell us their feedback on whether they liked the spa, whether they thought the fitness center was good and accurate and had all those different things. The other thing is that you're all probably very familiar, but Forbes is also, if you want to be a 5-star property now, and we live in the luxury space, we have many luxury brands. If you want to be a 5-star property, they now have 27 standards related to wellness, right? So they are holding the luxury properties accountable for that wellness initiative. The other thing that we know is that a spa guest, and we have, I would say spa is a staple now in the luxury space. It used to be that many properties had, but you can't really be in a luxury space without a very good spa. It is an expectation, I think, that the luxury customer has. But we do know that a guest that goes to the spa typically buys a higher priced room, a fancier bottle of wine, also eats on our property. They are a holistic customer to that property. They're invested in it, and they spend a significant amount of time at that property. So they're a valued guest with us. They also know that that guest rates the overall experience higher when they come to the spa because they've had an emotional connection at that property. They've had a hands-on experience with a therapist that, if it was done well, has really been aidful in their wellness experience. And that's an emotional connection that you just can't get by checking in a hotel and staying in a room and so forth. That's a whole different level of an emotional connection that you get with that guest. So there's some really intrinsic measurements that we have to look like. And then, of course, our spas need to operate profitable. They need to be a contributing factor to the overall success of the hotel. We don't build spas as an amenity. It's not a like the thing you have on property. It's got to financially driven. And I know we've got many consultants on here that deal with that every day, that it has to be a contributor to the overall bottom line of the experience.
And now it's easier to track. So these data are like the capture rate, like how many guests are internal guests and how many are external guests. What's the revenue per available treatment rooms, or what's the revenue per square meters for the overall spa? what's the capture rate of the gym. You can also extract from the menu like which items were sold the most, so you can see like what are the healthy items that were like how many of them were sold to clients. So like you can the spa is becoming more like or like wellness operations too are becoming more data driven. So it's easier to first do do the right spa, the right concept, because there are so many examples of spa that are either oversized, too small, or like not think through properly, or like just like tick box spa. Like we needed to have a spa, so we just put some treatment rooms there and we're good. So we're really going away from that. And there's also a lot of potential for the same way like that a few years ago, no one would go to a hotel for restaurants. Like hotel restaurants were boring. No one wanted to go there. Now, like it's more like we made so much effort on F&B, like making the really trendy and vibrant places. And now like some of the best restaurants are actually in hotels. So it's becoming like the spa is the next step, you know, like how to make super cool spa concept, wellness concepts. And again, it also depends, the profitability really also depends on your concept and what wellness means to you, because there's such a wide definition of wellness, from soft towards medical and integrative and everything in between. So depending on what you want to create and what you want to put together, the investment you will need will be different, and the return will be different too. But I agree that in any case, the benefit, the intangible benefit on brand image is one of the most important factors.
I think it's also ADR. I mean, you can't maintain a high ADR if you do not have a good spa, like, you know, that whole holistic experience. You don't have in-room fitness options, you know, you just simply can't charge those ADRs.
And
the other thing that I think to call out real quick is that a lot of our spas in our portfolio, 50%, 30, 40, 50% are the local market. So you're giving your property exposure to a guest that's not even staying in the hotel, and then they're going away with that experience. So the spa has a lot of tangible benefits on a property.
Absolutely. I mean, we just finished a spa here locally, and I'm actually a member at the membership club that we did. But
there you go.
It's, you know, you have more, like they're big, where they get the majority of their money, because South Florida is very seasonal, or used to be. It's your locals. And so there's this differentiating factor, and people are, again, very educated. They had time, they went by it. A salt room isn't a room with a bunch of salt in it. A salt room, there's equipment that goes into it. And you have to do it right, or they will call you out on it. You know, if the spa next door is doing this, you have to do this +1, or you have to do something completely different so that you're differentiating yourself, instead of just keeping up with the Joneses. So when you're taking in that investment and your return on that investment, make sure you have a differentiation of factors and treatments from the various spas around you.
And just to change, I mean, yeah, we've got 5 more minutes, and I've seen some fantastic questions from Jeffrey and Haley about what about the other forms of wellness, such as air quality, lighting, and, you know, things that contribute to a better night's sleep, design, and what about those aspects?
I can just speak to that with regard to our 2021 survey of consumers. Safe and hotel clean room was one of the things they ranked as extremely important. So was a purified water system throughout the hotel, and guest rooms with air infiltration systems. Those were 3 of the 6 things our consumers, close to 1,500, said were on their extremely important list, just to answer that question.
Completely agree with that, Liz, Dan. I just went to a hotel and I looked at the air filter, and then I called. Please change the air filter. This has been here since 1990. So I think that is one. It's really important. well is a big, important thing now, the well building, and that encompasses all of those. And it encompasses light, water, air. There's certain elements that are a little bit of hocus pocus, if you ask me. And then there's other elements that I think are extremely important. LEDs made some big changes so that not only is it LED that is blaring in your face and giving you headaches, but they have the LED light that's now the warmer light that can be used in measures of Kelvin that they have. The water filtration is big. Everyone carries around their water bottle now, right? So the availability of having that water when you enter, free water in the room. I know Marriott does that. And I think, especially for their Bonvoy members. So I think that that is a really big component of it. Why should I have to pay for a $5 bottle of water when I'm in my room? I need to have access to clean water. Great question.
So I used to work for Four Seasons Corporate, and in the Four Seasons in Los Angeles, they converted a whole floor with well rooms.
Yes.
So in partnership with Well, and you had like special flooring, healthy mini bar, like special fabric for the linen and bedding. You have healthy books, so like motivation books in the rooms. You have Peloton bike in some of the suite. You have like a mood mirror with light, air purifier, water purifier, all those kind of things. And they had a lot of studies saying that it was really improving your sleep quality, really good for jet lag, etc. So there are a lot of solutions now to really improve the quality of the room and make them better. And it goes also with what you were talking about, Sonia, sustainability. It goes hand in hand. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's conflicting because some of the things that are good for in terms of sustainability are not always the best option for people. So it's always trying to find an agreement to make sure that it's good for both. But in the end, like you can't have healthy people in an unhealthy planet. So the interest of both go towards the same direction.
Yeah.
Very true. And before we close, just the last topic from a question that Rad has brought up about what about the idea looking at wellness beyond our physical facility, beyond our physical hotel. So, we're looking the environment around us, engaging with, for example, running in a park, for example, or exploring forest bathing. What about those options of wellness?
If I may jump in here, a couple of the other things that our consumers said were extremely important were the sustainable and green practices and reflection of the local culture. They want authentic experience and they want to connect with the local culture. So that's all part of it.
Yeah, and I think one thing I could add is that our Westin brand has a Westin Run concierge, world famous. Everybody's pretty familiar with the Westin Run. And they take the guest out on runs through the city or through the environment, which is my favorite way to see a city. As a runner, I love to run through a city and be able to see it in that way. So it's a great way to get outside of the building and take your guests. And it's an employee. In some places, it's our general manager who is the concierge, the Westin concierge. But they take you out and on a run, and you're doing it with other guesting in the hotel, so you have something in common. It's a great way to do that.
Yes, now I find that running or just, that cultural exposure, engaging with the local culture, the local environment, just a very good way of discovering a place. And now this brings us to the end of our session, investing in wellness, your brand, your people, and your bottom line. Thank you so much, wonderful panelists. And Sonia, Kenneth, Ryan, Celine, thank you so much. And also thank you to our sponsor, Peloton Commercial, and the attendees with the fantastic questions. Wishing you all a fantastic day, afternoon, evening, in whichever part of the world you are.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.